we look at a woman going through abuse and we didn't think they are not strong enough to live. But it is not as simple as it appears. The complexity of it needs to be understood, not just by the woman going through that abuse, but also the people around them. So that includes the family members, the church members, if they are within the faith communities, and the communities around, and even the services.
I'm your host, Prudence, and today I'm truly honored to be joined by a remarkable woman whose work has impacted so many lives in the community, and her name is Cecily. Thank you so much, Cecily, for joining me today and for joining everyone.
Thank you so much, Prudence.
You're welcome.
And especially for considering to have this conversation with me, and a conversation that I know is very dear to you and definitely very dear to me, and it has been over the years, for so many years.
Yes.
For the simple purpose of empowering women and educating and informing communities, and that is us all.
Thank you so much, Cecily. Do you mind giving us a brief introduction of yourself?
Yes, Prudence, I will. Yeah, I am Cecily Mwaniki, a mother of 2 girls and grandma, and a wife for many years, through which I have learned. So career-wise, been around for quite some time, and my career has taken turns and twists that has brought me to where we are. But in all those turns and twists, it has always been around women, empowering women with the view of responding to the Millennium Goals. And this was, which are driven by the simple vision or mission that women, when a woman is empowered, the community is empowered. And
Yes.
healthy family relationships.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much, Cecily. It's such a pleasure. I am so happy to be having you today because I think we've been chatting for a few years, maybe 2 years, a year, and we just have a lot in common, which is amazing. And thank you so much for what you do for the community. Right. So before we dive into our main discussion, I have an icebreaker for us. Right.
Yes.
So I will say, if someone is to see you or is to hear you speak for the first time, what are the 2 words they could say about you? Just 2 words. What will they say? Will they say, "Oh, Cecily, I think she is very courageous"? What do you think they will say?
I'll say quiet until they hear me.
Yes.
Calm until also they get to know more about me.
Yes.
But definitely empowering.
Empowering and calm. I would definitely agree to that. You are very calm, but then your words are so powerful. So you and your words, you're a perfect combination. Thank you so much. Okay. So the next icebreaker will be looking back at your journey. Was there any particular moment that made you realize how important this work around supporting women truly is? Is there any moment you realized how important this work really is, supporting women?
Yes. Growing up, I grew up in a household where education was so much vouched for, very, very was the focus of everything. But in a community where women were not really seen to be that important going through education.
Mm.
But one
Yeah.
particular woman empowered me when I saw how she carried herself, how well, she was taken with very high esteem purely because she was a social worker. And
Mm.
so she just inspired me. And at that moment, young as I was still in primary school, I made up my decision that I wanted to be like her.
Mm. Wow.
So seeing that woman for me was everything. And I
Mm.
knew this was to take course when in 1995, of course, I believe you were not born then. And if you are,
I
you
was
must have
born.
been very young. You must have been very young. And
Yes.
you couldn't go back and check what happened in Beijing in 1995 in the world of women. And that for me was a moment that made me realize I needed to really get into it and work with the UN. And UN
Mm.
is all about communities, it's all about empowering communities and
True.
individuals. And that has been my focus.
Oh, bless you. All right. Thank you so much, Cecily. So we're now diving into our main discussion for today. Um, as I had mentioned before, that we are mainly focusing on domestic abuse and women. So, how would you clearly define domestic abuse for someone who may only associate it with it, like physical violence and all that? How would you define it in simple terms? Domestic abuse.
Yeah, it is simply a pattern of abusive behavior towards an intimate partner in a dating or a family relationship.
Mm,
So that pattern of abusive behavior, and it has
mm,
to be that intimate partner in a family or a dating relationship.
mm. Okay, so
Yeah.
I understand
And
we have. Oh,
that,
sorry.
mhm.
You can go
So
ahead.
diving down into that, I can expound it further and say that it is about really exerting power and control over
Mm.
that partner in a dating relationship or in a family setting. So power and control again becomes one of the common denominators in that.
Oh, okay. So it's mainly in a home. Yes, okay, that's fine. So, what are the different forms of abuse that often go unnoticed?
Yeah, the abuse takes different forms,
Mm-hmm.
and the noticed one are usually physical, but actually we have other forms, for example, psychological or emotional, economical, and sexual. They take time
Mm,
to be noticed. While
mm,
physical, you can almost immediately see something has happened. But
mm,
abusers are so intelligent, they want to delay that aspect of being noticed. So it takes longer before it is
mm,
noticed because of the other forms of abuse.
mm. So, do you think abusers know that they're abusing, or maybe it's their way of life, or maybe it's how they are brought up as well? To an extent, they think this is normal. Abusing is a normal way of life.
Yeah, I believe they know and they thought about being responsible. And
Mm,
actually, there is a common myth that, one of the many myths on domestic abuse is that abusers will always be abusers.
mm,
Just because they went through abuse, they will definitely abuse. But I dispel that myth by saying that they take responsibility of the choices that they make, so they are aware.
they are aware. Oh, okay. That's very interesting. So they are aware, but they don't change. They choose not to change.
Exactly that, the one, the choice
Mm,
is very important here. They choose not to change. And the reason why we use that word choice is because they will have been told what they are doing is not right,
mm-hmm,
but they still choose to continue with the abuse. And
mm,
ultimately, then they become responsible of their behavior.
mm. And
Yeah.
wow, that's very interesting. So why is what do you think, why is emotional abuse harder to identify than physical abuse? Because I think for me it's very hard to see that this woman is being abused at home. But is it noticeable?
It will take time to be noticed.
Mm-hmm,
And the reason why conversations like this are important is to help us identify that early enough, because even the victim herself
mm-hmm,
may
mm-hmm,
not realize or may not think what she is experiencing or the way she carries herself is as a result of abuse.
mm,
So, yes, emotional abuse will manifest itself in various ways. It could be low self esteem, anxiety, not trusting themselves, not
mm,
trusting others, but actually they may not have that understanding or link that with the abuse that
mm,
they are going through. And, constant ailments and that constant being around, not wanting to be around people. And the key to this is that they may not really think or link that with the abuse that they are going through. And this is
mm,
why learning around understanding how domestic abuse effects manifest themselves is very important.
mm. Yeah, I think it's a very hard topic to, like, it's a big topic. It covers a lot of things because I understand there is coercive control as well in a marriage.
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
some other women will not notice that they are going through this, and especially Christians, um, having it to link with being submissive, yet they are being controlled at the same time, struggling to find the balance of, am I supposed to be submitting to my husband, or is this being abused? So I think it's very hard for most Christian women to put a difference between submitting and keeping quiet whilst you are being abused. Um, is there anything you would want to share to Christian women who are really trying to be submissive to their husbands, but they are going through, it can be emotional abuse that people at church cannot see this person is not being physically abused? So is there anything you would want to share or to say to these women for them to put a difference between submitting and being controlled, abused?
Wow. Thank
Mm.
you, Prudence, for bringing that aspect of abuse into place. And I am sure of late you've had people talk about spiritual abuse, people
Mm.
being abused spiritually.
Wow.
And that can have a huge impact on the life of a Christian woman.
Mm.
And you've also mentioned another aspect of abuse, coercive
Mm.
behavior or
Mm.
coercive control. First of all, we need to understand what that coercion means and how it looks like. But in simple terms, really, coercive behavior is or abuse is control in itself, but one which is very calculated.
Mm.
It is calculated control, and it causes invisible change. Somebody is invisibly changed, and you can imagine the life of a person who is in chains.
Mm.
That means they are limited in what they do, where they
Mm.
go, and how far they think. Yeah. So that's total abuse. So you've mentioned about subordination. Of course,
Mm.
a Christian woman or a Christian family is there to model, good
Mhm.
life experience in the community, as Christ did. And in
Yes.
most cases, women that is abused, and it makes women experience abuse, what's a type of abuse in their lives. As lightly mentioned there, I will also mention Proverbs 31. which
Mm-hmm.
tends to reinforce that aspect of subordination.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can say is that women, when we are not informed in these aspects of how we learn our family lives, we can easily run into that cocoon of being abused
Mm.
unconsciously. So we allow it.
It's very
We
sad.
allow it
Yeah.
in the name of, in the spirit of being a Christian. So how can we get away from this?
Mm-hmm.
The only way to get away from this is obviously to read our Bible better, have interpretation that does not lead us to that aspect of being abused. So
Mm-hmm.
understanding exactly the context in which those Bible verses were written and living in ways that empower
Mm-hmm.
us as opposed to ways that disempower. So what we know is that when people or when Christians use that Bible verse of subordination, being submissive, it's a way of either getting away from responsibilities or accepting what they have been going through, almost validating the experience of abuse in many ways. And to me, this is what I call spiritualizing abuse, which doesn't work for us. It really doesn't. But the only way to get away from that is us seeking, first of all, God's guidance for better understanding, but also
Mm-hmm.
being open enough to learn from each other.
True. That's very true. Uh, there is this question which we always ask, or the majority of people, they say, why didn't she just leave? Why is it so oversimplified? Like, why do you think it's very hard to live as a woman?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm,
That's a very common question there, Prudence, and one
mm,
that even as Christians, especially,
mm,
the services supporting that woman. So it's quite complex because, for
mm-hmm,
one, this woman has probably been made to believe there is no decision that she can make that is valid.
mm,
Yeah. So the process of abuse will have led her to that point where that she cannot make any decision for herself.
mm-hmm,
The other thing to also to think about is there could be children in this relationship.
mm.
And
Right.
so the woman will first of all think about the children, the impact on the children
Mm,
before she thinks of herself. And that is usually a common element to an abusive relationship where a woman is trying to leave. When she thinks of
mm,
the children, she cannot make a step forward. Now,
mm,
this is where we now need to come in and bring in that education and an empowerment to each other, because this is about the woman looking after herself first so that she can better look after the children.
yes.
And that
Yes.
can be difficult when she has been made to think or to not appreciate herself.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say is that it is not as easy. Living
No,
is
it's
not as easy as it appears because of the
mm,
complexities that there
mm,
is.
mm. I also think what adds to this complexity is that maybe the woman or the mother does not have much capacity to provide for herself and even the children. Like if I leave and the husband is the one who is working, even if I
Mhm.
choose to go with the children or even if I leave the children, how am I going to survive? So what do you have to say to this mother who is thinking, I have nothing, where will I go? If I go back to my parents, for example, African parents, they will say go back to your husband. That's typical Africa. So do you have any advice, or what would you say for this person? Should she just die because of food? And how can she navigate this?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So chances are, part of that abuse, like we defined the abuse at the beginning, is that pattern.
Mm.
So part of that pattern is that this woman was meant to believe that she does not have to work because she's looking after children, and that
Mm-hmm.
is financial control. That she has no finances of her own. And even if she has finances of her own, for example, from her work, she is controlled financially.
Control.
She can't use it. So again,
Mm.
which is a form of abuse. Financial control is a form of abuse. So she could be going through that element of abuse, but she is not aware.
Mm.
So the fear that she will go, and because the finances are controlled by the husband, she will have no access to that. And even if
Mm-hmm.
she has access to that, perhaps where she is, she will not know, she does not have financial literacy to manage
Mm.
it. So that fear of feeling that she cannot do without the husband in the element of, due to the finances,
Mm.
becomes a real broker to her living.
Mm.
So
I
it's
think
going
that,
to look
yeah.
at the background as to
Mm. I
why
think mhm,
financially is feeling she can't manage.
that's true. I think that's why many women are suffering. I can't say poor per se, but I think most women who think they don't have anything are abused more than the women that are working, the women that are looking after themselves and the family as well. So I think we have a lesson to learn that even if you don't have education as a mother or a woman, at least to find a skill that if worst comes to worst, you can still look after yourself, you can still look after your children. And that brings me to the question on confidence. How does abuse gradually erode someone's confidence or even independence? How does it affect women to stand like tall, chest out, and how does it affect women's confidence?
Yeah, a very good question there,
Mm-hmm.
Prude, and one that really also responds to the point on that financial abuse, the woman feeling that she cannot manage it all. And you've mentioned
Mm,
a very important point there, having a skill. That
mm,
this is where the whole aspect of empowering women becomes very
mm.
important. I can
Sure.
say actually having this conversation in the month of March, which is
Mm,
said to be the month of women, is very, very, very fitting. Very, very
mm,
fitting because it's in those conversations of supporting or informing women the need of having a skill or having
mm,
an assigned hustle helps them build their confidence because they know they
mm,
can provide for the family even when the provision from the husband is limited because of all the other duties
mhm,
that he has to do. However, the word confidence there becomes very, very important, Prude, because part of abuse, emotional abuse, is what we refer to as gaslighting.
mm,
And gaslighting is about minimizing the strength and the skills that the woman might have. It comes in the form of being humiliated in public or even
mhm,
in the presence of the other family members. The verbal abuse, it also comes in the form of being isolated from other women or
mm,
other family members, and that alone can leave the woman feeling lonely and empty, hopeless and helpless, and the
mm,
confidence goes. And at that point, she will feel, not she might, she will actually
mm,
feel the only person she can depend on is the husband. So the very person who is making her lose her confidence is the very person that she has to depend on. And so part of an empowerment, and this is where communities of faith become very useful in having
mm,
conversations like this and actually
mm,
educating each other, especially on understanding the scripture better, because the scripture is there to empower, but not
mhm,
to disempower. So
mm,
the issue of confidence is very important because when women are empowered, they are confident enough to think of a skill to sustain their families or even to
Mhm.
support their husbands. Because in a marriage relationship where abuse is not there, it's supposed to be that symbiotic. You rely on each other.
Mhm.
And after all, we are told that the woman is the neck. And if you think about it, that's a very powerful position to be in, because
Mm.
you are the one to guide the neck, the head,
The
on where
head,
to go.
yes.
Yes.
Yes,
So it's not about
that's true.
control, but you're there to guide. So you're in a very
Yes.
privileged position to support
Mm.
and not to
Mm.
be abused.
That's it. It really saddens me that abuse affects a lot of things in a woman's life. Like you cannot go and you want to stay for the children, your confidence. But then it brings me to a question now that why do these women now blame themselves for the abuse? Have you ever heard of women who blame themselves for abuse? I think there are people who, I don't know if it's being too, I don't know if it's humility or it's that low self-esteem, but there are people who blame themselves for being abused. It's my fault. I did not do this. That's why he hit me. It's my fault. I did not do this. That's why he did this. So, why do victims blame themselves for abuse? It's very common.
Yeah, very, very common there,
Mm,
Prudence. Very common, actually. More common than we think. And
mm,
it's where it happens, where a woman has, that pattern of abuse has been going on for a long time, to a point where she has been made to think it has to be the man who has to say it all. So, because of that, she will always second guess herself, even when she
mm,
has not done wrong. She will think she has done the wrong thing. So that second guessing, again, it comes from the gaslighting, and also
mm,
from all other forms of abuse that there is. Remember, we mentioned that that abuse stems from power and control. Now,
mhm,
this woman must be controlled enough to know that whatever she does or whatever she says is not good enough,
mhm,
and so she either has to check it with another woman or with her husband. And that is why
mm,
you often hear say, maybe I was on the wrong, correct me
mm,
if I'm wrong, but I think I did ABCD, and that's why this happened. And
mm.
if you think about it, Trudy, that only empowers the man who is the abuser,
Definitely.
as as opposed to working things or to resolving things together. You are now empowering the man to think, actually, what I did was right. You deserved that.
Mm, mm. I think it's manipulative. Also, it's there's a narcissistic thing in there, like
Yes.
with that person, very controlling. And the other thing which contributes to women not saying, I have I have seen maybe it's the community stigma itself, uh, or what can I say? The people talk a lot, like they spread the news. If someone tells you, Cecily, that my husband is doing this, instead of taking the right steps, we are now spreading the news, and which has contributed
Mm-hmm.
to so many people being quiet, being silent about this, even in
Yes.
church, even in church.
Yes.
So, how does this community stigma contribute a lot to silence?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we know that is very common, Prude. We know that is very common. And
Mm,
stigma is cruel. Stigma is
mm,
cruel across the board. It's not just on domestic but abuse, but we also know how it is with the mental health. But stigma of domestic abuse or somebody, leaving their husbands, especially, it's not too bad now
mm,
compared to how it was a few years ago, because of
mhm.
the cultural understanding of what marriage should look like,
True.
or what the expectation of a woman is. that kind of justified the abuse to the woman, and
Mm,
she would stay. She was to stay in the marriage relationship irrespective of how toxic it
mm,
was. Then that goes to the church, now even magnifies further. You know, you are Christian. You're not supposed to leave. You're supposed to
mm,
foster a healthy family relationship. But then actually, if you think about it, what does healthy family relationship look like?
mm,
Would you consider my family relationship healthy given the
mm,
toxic environments we have? So again, it goes back to us as churches or communities of
mhm,
faith educating ourselves further to
mhm,
understand, first of all, to accept
mm,
there is abuse that goes on, and then begin to educate each other. And by so doing, we'll be addressing the stigma that
mm,
comes with domestic abuse or somebody leaving their family setting because of the abuse that goes on.
mm. That's
Mhm.
true. Yeah, it's very sad that instead of looking after each other or looking after our own, we are the same people who do not really care when someone is going through uh, huge things like this. And I think as women, it's important that we look at ourselves like, if I was in this situation, what was I going to do? So we need to unite as women. We need to look after each other. If you hear something, let's take action to rescue this woman from where they are, because it's not easy to open your mouth and share what your husband is doing to you. It's not easy. So when someone does it, it means they have thought really well about it, that I need to share, and enough is enough. And on that sharing, we are in the UK, and there's a lot of immigration going on. Uh, how can immigration status or legal fears complicate the situation? Because there is this spousal visa, there is this dependent visa, and you are being abused. How can it complicate the situation even further?
Yeah. So thank you,
Mhm.
Brunde, again for that question. And again,
Mm,
going back to that being quiet, being silenced because
mm,
of the repercussions of people talking. This is where we need to create safe spaces, make women feel comfortable enough to talk about what they are going through. You know, talking about immigration status, thankfully as we are now, and I know law changes all the time, immigration law changes all the time, but at the moment, domestic abuse is taken very, very seriously
mm.
because we know how many women and even men sometimes are dying daily
True.
because of
Mm,
domestic abuse. And sadly, where we are in our communities, almost every week you hear of a woman who has lost their life to
mm,
domestic abuse. So immigration takes that very seriously, and if you're to seek refuge through that route, they
mhm,
fast track it. If you
mm,
have got a good lawyer, they will be in a position to work with you and get that sorted within 3 weeks to a place of safety with all the
mm,
recourse to public funds. And then after that, then they start making sure that you're well settled. But then, trust me, because of the stigma, for a woman to reach that point, she will have gone so much through so much. It will only be at a crisis point that you
mm,
come to talk about that. So again, this is why we need safe spaces so that we can bring these things out early enough
mm,
before more damage is done on the woman.
mm. That's true. I think safe space is the word we needed. We need to create more safe spaces. They don't just appear. Creating them, whether it's small groups, whether it's meeting in person, Zoom, to just have a safe space for us to vent and share ideas and share experiences And someone will say, I've been through worse. You can never know because we're just dressed up and walking. No one can see what we have been through. It's not written all over our faces. But
Yes.
the moment we create a safe space, you will see that you're not the only one. And some people have been through worse and there is a way out. So thank you so much, Cecily, for that point. So what responsibilities do churches and community leaders have in addressing domestic abuse? Do you know? Maybe you know, like in our church, are there any steps or anything to address domestic abuse, or groups or websites and anything? Do you know of anything? Any department?
Yeah. What I know is that, especially within our church,
Mhm.
it has been very vocal, very, 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 very vocal around domestic abuse. And you
Amen.
will have seen programs around women being silenced. And so,
Mhm.
Women Ministries Department, through our leader, women directors, Anastasia,
Mhm.
she is on a mission of establishing those psychologically safe spaces for women.
Mm.
And as any other establishment, this takes time because really it's all about building trust. You
Yeah,
know, it's
true.
all about
True.
building trust. So that is the key point. That is one of the high on the agenda.
Mm.
Ensuring that women feel safe enough to open up first of all, and most importantly as well, to have these conversations in the pulpit. It doesn't have to be talked in the back rooms, has to be on the pulpit. That education element is, yeah, in our communities. Oh, that is where the local authorities are working so hard to
Mhm.
establish family hubs. And these family hubs are there to talk about domestic abuse and other element of abuse that goes on.
Mhm.
I know of a few hubs that have been established in our local authority, but I am also
Mhm.
aware that the university, the education side of things, are
Yes.
opening spaces where women can do research, community focused on such
Oh, okay.
aspects like that.
Mhm.
Yes, and if you want to, I can forward you a recent research that was done um, by three women focusing on mental
Mhm.
health, menopause, and domestic abuse. And
Wow.
so proud that one of their recommendations was around establishing psychologically safe spaces or women's hub where they can
Mm.
talk about mental health, menopause, and domestic abuse. So an element of safe space
Safe
is
space.
there, and one that is
Mm.
going on. Yeah. Yes.
Mm, that's amazing. We are so glad that there is something going on.
Yeah.
In case some ladies did
Yeah.
not know there is a lot going on, so it's good that you have addressed that there is somewhere to go, to learn, to spread awareness. So for someone who is currently experiencing abuse, this is reality. What
Yes.
is a safe first step? What can they do first to the women
First of
experiencing
all,
abuse right now?
yeah, yeah. Right now, if you're experiencing it, you know that the first thing you need to do is to be safe. And for you to
Mm,
be safe is get in touch with the police. And the police have got a very active department looking after the welfare of women. And they will
mhm,
ensure that you are in a safe space, in a refuge somewhere where your
mhm,
safety is looked after. And while you're in that refuge, then you'll be connected with so many other community safe spaces where education now comes in. So the empowerment element is also catered for. So
mm,
police are your first bet if you are in that space of crisis. Depending on where you are at with the abuse, please, I will encourage you to connect with trusted women, not
mhm.
only in your church, they could be women in your communities, but whatever you are going through, make sure you share it with somebody that you trust. Do not keep
True.
it to yourself.
Mm,
If it means calling a crisis point number, please
mhm,
do, but do
mhm,
not keep it to yourself.
mm.
Share it with somebody.
True. Thank you, Cecily. So, as we move on to our conclusion, our time really ran fast. As we go to our conclusion, uh, what does the healing journey realistically look like after leaving? So now we have reported and or now we have left the abusive person. What is the healing journey like? Because it's one thing which terrifies us. Like, so if I leave, as I have said before, how am I going to get back to the routine? I'm going to miss my home. I'm going to do this. How is it realistically? How do you think these people are feeling? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel to start over? How do you think it looks like?
Yeah. So the healing journey, once you have gone through all that process, you know
Mm-hmm.
where you are, but you also know that you're not going to be stuck there. So the
Mm,
most important step to take is to accept where you are
mm-hmm.
and be focused on what you want to achieve. And this is
Mm,
where safe spaces now become important because they empower you to think about the next step. Remember,
mm,
when you are at that point of being stuck, it's like you are at the bottom, you are at the rock bottom. How do you bounce back? The way to bounce back is to have conversations like this, engage with the support services that are already
mm,
will be supporting you, and because their focus will be to help you now
mm.
move on from where you are. And accessing all that service goes a long way in redefining yourself.
Thank you so
Very,
much,
very
Cecily.
important. Again, you don't do it alone.
Yes, thank you so much. So, as we come to the end of today's discussion, I know there is a lot in this abuse. Having to talk about physical abuse, it can take a long time. Just talking about the coercive, spiritual, each topic, there are many topics on abuse and they take a long time. And we have just scraped the surface all in all, touching what we could touch. And I just want to take a moment to thank you so much, Cecily, for sharing your wisdom and your experience and your heart with us. This has been such an important, eye-opening discussion, not only to the people listening or watching, even to me, especially on the Christian and the Bible perspective. As you know, most of our friends, you and me, are mostly from our church, and it's very hard for us to talk about these topics. Even in our retreats, we have a number of retreats. We talk about so many things, and not so many times we talk about abuse itself, you know. And it is very important. It's one thing which will it drags us back even spiritually, because sometimes you don't even have the power to kneel down and pray, and you are so ashamed to share with the other people at church. You are so ashamed. So this has been so eye-opening. And do you have any last words to the women or the mothers facing any kind of abuse at this moment?
Yeah. The What I can say is that women, irrespective of what you're going through, remember there is power, there is
Mm-hmm.
strength, there is potential in you. So
Mm.
use that to bounce back. And also, you bounce back with the understanding that life is a problem solving process. If you're not
Yes.
experiencing domestic abuse, there will be something else. And that makes life beautiful. So the
Mm.
thing for you to do is to accept what it is that you're going through and
Mm-hmm.
work out where you want to go. And you don't have to do this alone. You
Mm.
don't have to do this alone. I mean,
Yes.
in the creation story, you know that we are not created alone. So do
Mm.
not do life alone. Support accordingly.
Yes. Seek support accordingly. Let's live by those words. Okay. Domestic abuse is not always visible. And for so many women, especially mothers, it is something they carry silently. But today's conversation reminds us that no woman is alone. We have heard about safe spaces. you know what? If there is no safe space, do you know that you can create one? Create a safe space for people in the same situation with you, not to say there's no safe space for this, no safe space. You have the power. We've been talking about skills and all that. You can create one safe space, and there is help, there is support, there is a way forward. It's not the end. And to every woman listening, I just want to say your safety matters and your voice matters. Your well being matters, and you deserve to live in peace. You deserve to live in dignity. You deserve to live in freedom. Freedom tastes good. So, if anything from this conversation has resonated with you, please don't stay silent. Please just reach out, speak to someone you trust. As Cecily said, it's not only at church, even in the community. There are vicars, there are MP, there are ladies who are MPs. There are a lot of role models, you know. There are librarians who volunteer, those ladies. Speak to someone. Take that first step. I know it's very hard to take that first step, however small it may feel. And to those watching, let us be more aware and more compassionate and more willing to support all the women around us. Thank you so much for joining us on the Prudence Network. And we continue to have these conversations that educate and empower and uplift. So until next time, I'm your host, Prudence. Let's take care of yourselves and one another. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.